Martyr is the next card to release in Marvel Snap. Today we are taking a look at the good, the bad, the mechanics, some interactions, and a potential deck list, and ultimately pass final judgment and see whether or not Martyr is worth it in this installment of...
Is it worth it?
What's up, nerds? So let's just kick this right off. Martyr is a 1 energy, 4 power card that reads, at the end of the game, move to a location that loses you the game, if possible.
Disappointed!
I mean, you could just play Ant-Man instead of Martyr if you wanted to really play something that has 1 energy and 4 power. But before we rag on this card too much, let's take a look at some mechanics and interactions. So Martyr's mechanics, I think, are best summed up in saying that think Captain Marvel, but the reverse.
Problem solved!
Everything Captain Marvel does, every question you have about Captain Marvel also applies to Martyr, and so do the answers. So for instance, if a Martyr is played on turn 1 and the opponent plays a Martyr on turn 2, your Martyr will move first at the end of the game, and then theirs will move after that, and that's how the Martyrs will decide who's going to lose the game for you. Same applies to cards like Dracula or Invisible Woman. Whichever card is played first will trigger first at the end of the game. If you have any question about how Martyr will function, head over to Reddit and just type in "why didn't Captain Marvel move?" You'll get your answer, but just substitute Martyr for Captain Marvel. The second thing to point out, I suppose, is the ways to turn Martyr off. The only ways you can do this directly, or synergistic ways to turn off Martyr, would be Zero and locations like Deep Space, and of course Leech. Aside from that, the only way to stop Martyr from moving in a game is to fill up the board and give Martyr no places to move to. And the last point here I would like to bring up is locations matter. Now here I'm talking about locations like Bar with No Name, Fisk Tower, and negative locations like Necrosha, Sewer System, stuff like that. She will take her future power into account. If you fly over into, let's say, Necrosha, she will also commit suicide by flying into Fisk Tower, and if Bar with No Name is there, she'll fly in there and lose you that location. Now, as you can see by the stuff we're covering so far in this game, how in the hell is there anything good about this card? Well, let's take a look at some of those right now. The first good thing about this card, cool name. It's a cool name. It has cool art too. It's a pretty sick character. That's about all I can come up with. The second point is she's versatile. Technically, you could put Martyr into any deck that floods the board with a lot of cards, or into any deck that would want to run Zero, and she would be all right there, I suppose. Whether that's like a bounce type list, or an Ultron deck, or a Patriot deck, or Sauron decks, sure. I mean, that's quite a handful of different decks she could potentially go into. And the last positive, I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel for this card, is that she's a Series 4 card. She's only going to cost 3k tokens, so if you decide to get her, she's not going to break the bank. The bad, there's not many points here, but they're really bad. First point, she will literally lose you the game. You can't get a bigger downside than you lose. The second negative of Martyr is Titania exists. Now, what I mean by this is, honestly, why would you ever want to play Martyr when Titania is right there? Titania has 5 power, and it's less of a downside and more manageable than Martyr is. Sure, Titania might make you think a little bit more.
Dumb bitch.
Sure.
But you get an extra power, and you don't lose the game if you screw up playing Titania. But yeah. The existence of other cards is a downside to Martyr. Yikes. Alright, moving on to a deck list. This video is going to be a lot shorter than my normal card review videos, because there's not much to say about Martyr, to be perfectly honest, but here's a deck that I think she could be okay in. This deck uses Zero to get rid of the effects of cards like Ebony Maw, Maximus, Attuma, Gladiator, and then supplemental cards like Invisible Woman, Armor, and Professor X to help you play out cards like Gladiator, Maximus, Attuma, and Ebony Maw without actually having any downsides, really. Now, the reason Martyr would be decent in this deck, actually, 1/4's alright, but really, why wouldn't you just run Nebula here? But the reason why Martyr is okay here is because if you play Martyr into a lane and then you lock that lane down with Professor X, Martyr can't move out of the lane, so that's kind of cool. Also, this deck has so many ways to turn off your cards. Like you have Cosmo to stop Gladiator, Maximus, and Doc Ock. You have Invisible Woman to stop Ebony Maw and Datuma. That's sometimes your zeros just sitting in your hand, not getting much use. Well, here, use it on your Martyr and make it a decent card. I posted a deck very similar to this called Off Reveal a week or two ago. I'll put it somewhere up here on the screen. But this deck actually is pretty solid. In that version, we had Nebula instead of Martyr and Destroyer instead of America Chavez. But yeah, this deck, and then also, like I said, any Patriot Ultron deck might want Martyr. But I think the second best home for Martyr is just going to be your Sauron Shuri lists. Alright, moving on to Spotlight Cache, and whether or not I would recommend opening Spotlight Caches or spending tokens on Martyr. Spoiler alert, no, neither, don't. First thing, 3k tokens, there's a lot other cards that you should spend 3k tokens on if you don't have them. Just buy them in your shop, pass on Martyr. Now, as far as Spotlight Caches go, usually this is a different story considering you get a chance at 2 other cards in Spotlight Caches, but here they're Jean Grey and Spider-Man 2099. Now, Jean Grey is a decent card. She's a little tricky to make really good in a particular deck, but I actually like Jean Grey. But Jean Grey is certainly not a card I would open Spotlight Caches for. She's not vital to any top meta deck, and there isn't a whole archetype that you can now play and unlock if you pick up Jean Grey. And as far as Spider-Man 2099 goes, other than being a cute card to play with Ghost Spider and Iron Fist, what's the point? You don't need Spider-Man 2099 really at all. So opening Spotlight Caches, why would you? You have a shot at 2 cards you don't really need and a card that's bad. Pass. Well, usually with this card review videos, there's considerations. There's like, oh, maybe you like playing this type of deck and maybe you do this. Then it would be good to get it. Who knows? Maybe it's a great card, maybe it's a bad card. But I think I can for certain recommend that Martyr is not worth it whatsoever. It's kind of a bummer. She's probably one of the worst cards to release in a very long time. And that's my final judgment. All right, thank you so much for watching, nerds. Thank you so much to the members of my channel. You guys are awesome. If you would like to join their exalted ranks, check out the community page on my channel. It's $1.99 a month. I put all the perks in there I could, and the bigger the community grows, the more fun it's gonna get and the more interactive videos I can do with you guys in the future. But I'm tired of talking and I'm hungry. I'm gonna go get some food. So later, nerds.
Dumb bitch.